I'm honored to invite Amos Gilead, the head of the Institute for Policy and Strategy and the chair of the Herzliya Conference Series at the Reichman University.
At this point, I would like to call on His Excellency Tom Nides, the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, for a one-on-one interview on all the important issues. Please, Ambassador.
That's it. That's the strategic alliance. Mr. Ambassador, it's a great honor and pleasure to interview you. There are better journalists that can do it, but I'm honored to do it. I need to open with two personal remarks. First of all, I'm so sorry you are leaving. You are essential in Israel more than you can imagine. How do I know it? Because you are leaving. And that's, I need to praise you, it's blow. I mean, it's strategic, it has strategic impact on us. It's not flattering, I'm not flattering you, I mean it based on my acquaintance with you. Secondly, I am involved in US-Israel in the deepest layers, 50 years. I say BC, before COVID, I don't want to say BC like I'm old. So I've invented something, everything that relates to me, it's BC, before COVID, because that's why I look younger. But I would like to share with you, based on what's happening now in Israel, what is your attitude to our strategic alliance? That there are some Israelis that I need to say idiots, sorry to say, it's not diplomatic language, I don't have it, that say, mind your own business, we don't need United States. I cannot imagine our existence in Israel without the strategic alliance and the friendship that based mainly on shared values. So I would like to ask you, how do you see it from your perspective?
Well, first of all, General, it's an honor to be with you. You're a hero, as you know, and someone of enormous leadership skills, and when you call and ask to see me, the answer is always yes. And the good news for me, I actually learned something from you, which is not the case with everyone who comes to see me. So I want to thank you for you and being a friend of America and the importance of the alliance. Joe Biden, when he gave me the job, he said only one thing. There's an unbreakable bond between the United States and Israel, and don't break it on your watch. So the good news, I only have 45 days left. I haven't yet to break it, and I have no intention of doing so. The reality of this alliance is very healthy. The reality of this is one of the big surprises, and I see my friend Dennis Ross, and he knows this better than most. The relationship with Israel and America it's in our kishkas. It's beyond just the military and the intelligence and the politicians. It's who we are as a country, who we are as America, the values that we share with Israel. This is the democracy in the Middle East. It is the shared values that keep us together. It's the sharing of what it's like to be a democracy. This is what this place is, and this is what America is, and this is what our relationship is. So I'm very positive on. Sometimes do friends argue? Sure, why not? It's like I argue with my wife sometimes. The reality of this is this relationship is unbreakable. It's worthy of both the United States and Israel, and we continue to expand it and grow it every day.
Thank you. Now I'm getting to tougher questions. We do have Iran. I'm dealing with Iran again before COVID. I presented the assessment about Iran to Mr. Netanyahu, 1996, and he adopted it as a main threat. Today, Iranians very close to be able to carry out their vision. I mean, not now, but nuclear, missiles, ballistic capabilities, terror, cyber, and so on. Even if we want, for example, to attack tomorrow Iran, military option, I'm not talking about secrets about our capabilities, what can we do it without United States? And if we cannot do it, what is your opinion? What is the relationship between the shared values, namely democracy, the lack of meetings between Prime Minister and the President of the United States, without meetings, with all due respect, and I do have, to intelligence relationship, Air Force, IDF, General Kurilla that visiting us frequently, belonging to CENTCOM, but you need the heads in order to make it something substantial. So what is your real opinion about it? I know it's not so easy to answer it, but I trust you that you will do it.
Well, first of all, I think it's be clear to everyone, the coordination between the United States and Israel vis-a-vis our mutual enemies, the threats in the region, is lock solid. Everyone assumes it's just about America helping Israel. No, Israel helps America all the time, especially in this region. One of the things that the President Biden assured both Prime Minister Bennett and then Lapid and now Netanyahu, the conversations and coordination around Iran are completely without any lack of transparency. You know, some would suggest that the former administrations that Israel was surprised in some of the activities. First of all, we don't need to go into history, but the reality of this is the president made a commitment, and he intends to fulfill the commitment. He also made it very clear we're not going to stand by and let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon. There are people who talk about deterrence, degradation. We also talk about diplomacy. I think it's an important part of who we are as America. It's important about how you use your hard power and your soft power. If you believe what you read in the New York Times, and of course I believe everything I read in the New York Times, there's been several exercises, joint exercises that have taken place here. There's obviously the focus of CENTCOM, as you point out. That's a big deal. Having CENTCOM here in Israel and the coordination of General Kurilla, there is no lack of focus on Iran in the United States government. Everyone and every day between not only the defense and the intelligence and the Congress and the White House and the State Department, we're all focused on this together. And I assure you one thing, we talk about the conversations, there isn't a day that goes by, and arguably not an hour that goes by, that we're not talking to Israel about what they believe. Listen, one thing you have to give the Prime Minister credit for, he's been consistent for almost 20 years on this issue of Iran. This is not something he hasn't focused on. And I think it is imperative for all of us that we understand the threat. And it's not just Iran, it's its proxies. And as we've seen between Hezbollah and Hamas, the ability for all of these to cause harm to Israel, we stand here to support Israel, to work with Israel to make sure Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon.
You know, it's not a secret that we are relying on our military strengths or might, and thanks to you in the United States as ambassadors that we are given. We hosted here the Lockheed Martin with the F-35. I mean, that's great. However, in order to be powerful, you need to have strategic power. We do have an unbelievable relationship with the Arab countries. However, one of the pillars of our national security, the way it was phrased by Prime Minister Netanyahu, is to normalize our relationship. And U.S., that's my impression, I don't know too much about it, you are pushing something very ambitious in Saudi Arabia. How do you see the future of our relationship with Saudi Arabia and the normalization, or proceeding with the normalization in the future, but mainly with Saudi Arabia?
Well, first of all, I think it's, and I've said this probably 5 billion times. I give the previous administration an enormous credit, including the Prime Minister and the Trump administration and the leadership and my predecessor, David Friedman, on obtaining the Abraham Accords. It was a game changer. There's no question. The work that was done with the Emirates and the Bahrainians and the Moroccans were something I think all of us should step back and understand how successful that was. And then you add that between Egypt and Jordan, the combination of the Abraham Accords has changed the dynamics in the region in a fundamental way. I spent an enormous amount of time with these countries, growing the relationships, managing it, working as the joiner. We obviously can't tell these countries what to do, but we work with them collectively to make sure, both on economic and military cooperation, that's going on. And so I think that is fundamentally an important part of what has transformed here over the last 4 and 5 years. Obviously, it has been talked about of the potential, and I use the potential of a normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The President of the United States came here 7 months ago for his 10th visit to Israel, and he said very clearly, after he said you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, he made it very clear that he was going from Israel to Saudi Arabia, and one of the reasons he was going was because of Israel. One of the reasons he fundamentally wanted to go was to basically to improve the relationships in the hopes over time that a normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel would happen. Would be phenomenal over time to get this done if we can. It's complicated. Everything's complicated, but it is in a view of many individuals who watch the region. It would be fundamentally a game changer because it's not just Saudi Arabia. It's much of the Muslim world, ultimately. So we're going to work with the Israelis and with the Saudis and with not only with America but the policy holders, those legislators, and see if something can come about. Again, the president has said that he is willing to lean in. Jake Sullivan had a long speech a couple weeks ago. We care about this. This would fundamentally change the security of Israel and could be fundamentally important to what we think about as the threat to Iran. So is it worth putting time into it? Without question. Are we committed to it, to pushing forward and trying to see if there's a way to do this? Of course. Obviously I can't predict the future, but it's certainly something that we would like to lean into over time.
How do you see the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia? It seems to me that I'm not sure it's so significant. That's why it's very interesting to share with you the view about it. We will see the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Riyadh before we see the Israeli one. But maybe I'm wrong. Or it's not important.
Yeah, I don't. There's been lots to be said about this. You all need to. Listen, there's a very intelligent group of people here. You understand what that was about. That was about fundamentally the Yemen war. It was about the Houthis and the attacks on Riyadh between their oil refiners, and they wanted to end that. The Yemen war has, in fact, gone into a ceasefire, which is important. We certainly support anything that creates calm. And by the way, so does Israel. Calm is good. Calm is good, and I don't believe today that it has any fundamental issues vis-a-vis the possibility of Saudi normalizing with Israel, given the fact having a diplomatic relationships with Iran. So I think the Israelis feel fine about it. We certainly fine about it. Ultimately, the relationship between Saudi and Israel and Saudi and Saudi's relationship with the United States is something we have to work on to fundamentally make that change in hopes that we will be able to achieve something that could really be fundamentally differentiating for the region and something well worth working on.
We do have, as usual, a unique and specific relationship with the Palestinians. What is your view about it? What we need to do? Because you are releasing announcements that I don't remember since a long time about some events. I'm sorry I'm embarrassing you, but I need to do it.
I don't understand. No, okay. Listen here. I'm the American ambassador to Israel. I'm not the American ambassador to the West Bank and Gaza. However, as a guy who has, again, I say this has gone to almost every Shiva call of an Israeli who has been killed by a Palestinian terrorist here. I have, and I'm not good at it. I mean, obviously, I've gone and I've cared, but if you've never never walked into a home of someone who's been killed by a terrorist, I think you've never really experienced something, and I have done that. But given that, and so I will never do anything that compromises the security of the state of Israel, but I fundamentally believe the United States and Israel, for their own security, need to help the Palestinian people. If you put the PA aside for a minute, I'm talking about the Palestinian people. The average Palestinian wants, just by and large, exactly what most of your kids or grandkids want. They want a job, they want opportunities, they want hope. And we try to do that. And listen, this is not glorious. I mean, Dennis will get the Nobel Peace Prize before I do. So I'm not interested. This is an idea of a two-state solution that will leave to other brilliant thinkers. As Joe Biden has said, we're practical. We want to do this practical thing. So the reason I spend so much time on things like opening the Allenby Bridge, getting 4G, working on hospitals, trying to do education, trying to do healthcare, I think it's fundamentally important to give the Palestinians who live in the West Bank and in Gaza a future, a belief of a future, because I think at the end of the day, it makes Israel safer. Okay, again, I will do nothing that compromises the security of the state of Israel, but you can do both. You can actually be helpful, try to break the cycle at the same time. So that's what I try to do. It's something I care about. I think it is certainly not without some anxiety here in Israel vis-a-vis what could happen if the collapse of the Palestinian Authority, which I don't think anyone wants to have happen. So given all the concerns and anxiety, I work every day to try to make sure we do things to make Israel stronger and more secure, at the same time trying to help the future.
I would like to ask you about any possible way out of the conflict in Ukraine. It seems bloody and endless. So is there any way out?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, listen, again, it's not a promotion for Joe Biden, our presidency, but I would suggest that, there's always a rap certainly in the Middle East, is that, where are you? Why isn't the United States asserting their authority? Why aren't you involved? Why are you on the sidelines? I mean, I constantly hear the rap. I mean, I think the reality, the leadership role that the president played and American legislators played, both Democrats and Republicans, it's not a partisan issue, about rallying NATO together to stop the Russian aggression in Ukraine has been really one of the most remarkable developments I think we've seen in the last 20 years. I mean, we with our leadership and with the leadership of Europe, they not only have changed how they think about their defense, about the money that they spend, how they organize, and from unbelievable amounts of sacrifices. So I think our view of this has been very simply, we've got to back Zelensky. We've got to back the Ukrainian people. We've got to stop the Russian aggression. The insanity that Putin has placed upon the Ukrainian people is in all of our minds terrifying. And by the way, again, I think it shows to the rest of the world, those aggressors out there and the rest of the world who are thinking about putting harm on the United States or its allies, they'll think twice. Because ultimately, when the United States and our allies come together, it's an unbelievably powerful force. I don't know how it's going to end, obviously, but I think that it sends a strong message to the rest of the world, be careful what you wish for, because the United States, together with the Western alliances, can be enormously powerful in stopping aggression at its doorsteps.
Regretfully, you have decided to leave us.
I'm not dying. I'm not dying. Leaving us is, just going home. I'm just going home.
No, but I need to tell you that I think I know all the American ambassadors, with due respect to all of them. You are playing here dramatic dramatically important job. I'm sure I don't want to ask personally whoever is here, but why are you leaving us? No. We need you. Can I change your mind?
Well, you're like everyone else. So the Prime Minister called and said the same thing. He said he'd be willing to call my wife. I said, that's not a good idea. Listen, I think this is a phenomenal job. I mean, being the American ambassador to Israel, probably one of our most important, if not the most important ally. Now, the housing's terrible now, but that's a whole other issue, since I sold my house, but in Herzliya. I'm not bitter, by the way, but my beautiful house was about 6 blocks from here, and they sold it, but I'll get even with David Friedman later. But I think this is a spectacular, emotional, interesting, and a really important job. And obviously, I've been here about 2 years. I've had 3 prime ministers. My wife did not come. She has her own profession, and I'm grateful for her letting me come, because quite frankly, it's been a burden on her. I've got 2 kids, and I want to be there. And so the role here, you also want to leave with people who still like you. And in this place, that's not easy. I mean, I could screw it up today. I mean, I may have already screwed it up, but this is a tough place to be ambassador. This is not for the faint of heart, because I think one of the things I learned when I took this job is people really care about this place. I mean, the lovers, the haters, the politicians, anyone who's given $4 to UJA. I mean, everyone. It's a really important place. And I think that's an important segment for whoever's here. And because I think it's that important, it's an enormous honor to have this job.
Before you leave, and I failed to convince you to stay, I apologize to the nation of Israel. So do you have any recommendations to Israel from here and after you get back to US?
Well, one thing I've said, and I think it's really important. There's been lots of conversation about judicial reform and all that, and someone said, "Well, democracy is on the verge here of collapse." I said, "What are you talking about? Forget what side of the issue you're on the judicial reform. Think about this for a minute. Every weekend for 20 weeks." Between 150,000 and 250,000 Israelis have gone to the streets, okay? Some for, most, against, some for, but the 250. And guess what's happened? Virtually no one's been arrested. There's been no damage of property. God knows no one's been killed. That's a democracy. And some would say it's actually working, right? Really working. In how people talk about it and think about it and spend time on it. We, by the way, that would be the equivalent of 6 or 7 million Americans every Saturday showing up. We've never had that happen. Look what happened in Paris. They just want to raise the retirement age by a couple years, okay? I think it is a remarkable testament to this place. And when people give the anxiety and hand-wringing, listen, Israel is going through a complicated period, no question about it. But make no mistake, this is a thriving democracy with people who care deeply about the future of the country, and that's something all of us should be very, very proud of.
Mr. Ambassador, I hope that I would keep you until you change your mind. But unfortunately, we do have limits of time. So, Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. It's a great honor to know you, not as politeness, really. And I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you very soon. And you will be invited to any conference that we will have in future.
Thank you, General.